Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar on composite products and the new regulations in relation to importation. We have a number of different people here from the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine to try and give you an idea of what will be necessary over the next while. And we will also have a Q&A session at the end. We'll begin with Ruth Sanders, who's a supervising veterinary inspector from the Border Control Post Policy Division. She'll take you through the upcoming changes and private attestation requirements. We'll then also have two speakers from the operations side of import control who are based in Dublin Port, both veterinary inspectors, those being Noreen Galvin and Paddy Crumlish. And we also have a couple of people from the Import Controls Division at the end for the questions and answers session. We'll be monitoring your questions as they come in through the webinar. Anything that we can't get to today, please appreciate, obviously, will be a lot of questions. We may not be able to deal with all of them in the course of our Q&A, but anything that we get in, we have a record of, and we will come back to you with an answer. Okay, so I think that's probably all you need for orientation. So I will hand over to Ruth Sanders for the first presentation.
Good morning, everybody. So as Tom said, my name is Ruth Sanders and I'm working in the Border Control Post Policy Division. So this presentation today will aim to cover the changes coming up to compare the previous documentary requirements with the new ones, to provide some guidance on the completion of the private attestation, and to discuss the import requirements for these composite products. So as a quick overview, what is a composite product again? So a composite product is a product for human consumption which contains both processed product of animal origin and product of plant origin. More specific details are available on the website, and if you have specific product queries where you're not sure if your composite is a composite, please send them to the email address that'll be at the end of the presentation, and we can assist you with determining whether it complies with composite product requirements. So what will change on April 21st? So the rules will no longer be based on a percentage of animal origin, but on the risks to public and animal health. And those risks are based on risk assessments performed by the European Food Safety Authority. So the new requirements are covered in the following pieces of legislation, which I'll go through individually in the following slides. So the first piece of legislation is Regulation 2019-625, and this is under the Official Controls Regulation. And in this regulation, we have Article 12, which provides a list of CN codes. And if your composite product is imported under these CN codes, then it requires official controls. Article 12 also categorises composite products into three new categories, and they are non-shelf stable, shelf stable containing meat, and shelf stable not containing meat. Now for meat, that excludes gelatin, collagen and highly refined products, for example, glucosamine, chondroitin, etc. This regulation also provides the concept of a private attestation, and in that, I suppose first and foremost, the attestation requirements is for traceability purposes. And we all know the farm to fork traceability concept, and this is achieved by knowing one step forward, one step back for each of these products coming in. The attestation also requires that the composite product complies with import requirements, and I'll detail these at later stages in the talk. So Regulation 2020-692, this covers the animal health requirements, i.e. keeping disease out of the union that could be imported in a product of animal origin, and the one that jumps to mind is obviously foot and mouth disease, which can be imported in products of animal origin. So in this regulation, we have two main articles. Article 162, which deals with your non-shelf stable or products containing meat. And the rules for these is that they must be manufactured in a third country or territory which is listed for entry into the union of the specific product of animal origin contained. So what this means is that if there is meat in your composite product, then the third country where it is manufactured, even where it's assembled, must be listed for the import of meat. It also states that the product of animal origin must come from either the same country or the EU or a third country which is listed for the import of meat without that meat undergoing a risk mitigating treatment. We then have Article 163, and this deals with the shelf-stable composite products containing dairy egg products and details the heat treatments that must be applied to these products to comply with this regulation. Currently, these rules require that dairy products have received a treatment at least equivalent to UHT and sterilisation. That's what column B in Annex 27 there relates to. The Commission have issued a draft proposal in the last days to amend this regulation, which would permit pasteurised dairy products from countries which are either listed in the Annex to Regulation 605/2010 for such products, or in Annex 17 to the new Regulation 2021/404. There are also interim measures proposed until the amendment to this regulation is formally adopted. And these measures would also permit dairy products or pasteurised dairy products and composite products to be imported from countries listed in the regulations previously mentioned. So DAFM raised industry concerns repeatedly with the Commission, and as a result, these proposed changes will allow composite products containing pasteurised milk to be imported into the EU from Great Britain. The proposal is due to be finalised shortly, and Ireland has welcomed and supports these proposals. The next piece of legislation then is a delegated regulation which has not been formally adopted, so the number is not supplied yet. And this regulation is on composite products exempt from official controls. So the list you can see here on the right side of the screen effectively replaces the list that was in Annex 2 to Regulation 2007/275. And that regulation will be repealed from the 21st of April. So you'll note in column 2 the explanation that the percentage limits on the products of animal origin have been removed. So if your composite product is under one of these CN codes in column 1 and it's both shelf stable and doesn't contain meat, then it will be exempt from official controls. It's important to note that these composite products must originate from a third country authorised to export either meat or dairy or colostrum or fishery or egg products to the Union, and also must be from a country that's listed as having a residue plan, as per Commission Decision 2011/163. It's also important to note that these composite products will also require private attestation, but that this should accompany the consignment to the point of placing on the market, i.e. the point of sale or the operator's warehouse, for example. And risk-based controls will be performed at this point and not at the BCP. So the final regulation we're looking at is Regulation 2020/2235, and this contains the certificates and the private attestation relevant to composite products. So the model health certificate, which is contained in Chapter 50, covers non-shelf stable products or shelf stable products containing any meat, but excluding gelatin, collagen, or highly refined products, as previously discussed. There is a transition period that applies whereby products that were previously certified, so products that previously required a health cert, these can continue to be imported on the current health cert until October 2021, as long as the cert is signed before August 2021. For products that weren't previously certified, this transition period does not apply. The model private attestation can be found in Annex 5 to this regulation. So this is the table that was provided by the Commission, and this table compares the current and the new rules and outlines what documentation each product category requires. So I've circled the two main areas here where the main changes occur. So the first is for these shelf-stable composite products that contained over 50% product of animal origin, which wasn't meat. But even with the greater than 50% product of animal origin, these previously required a health cert, but they can now come in on a private attestation instead. Because these products previously had a health cert, they can avail of the transitional period, so can continue to come on the health cert until October. The second area then is for composite products not containing meat, but containing less than 50% product of animal origin, which previously didn't require a health cert if they met the requirements of Article 6. So that was the fully cooked or shelf stable requirements. So if these composites are not shelf stable, they will now require the new certificate. If these products are shelf stable, they will now require the new private attestation. Again, because they were previously derogated or exempt from having certification, apologies, they can't avail of the transition, so they must come in either on the new certificate or on a private attestation. So I will now run through a private attestation and try to provide some guidance as to what is expected in each of the different boxes. So as an opening, I suppose, for products which are exempted from official control, so those in the list of the Delegated Act I previously discussed, there's a certain number of boxes here that are optional for these products, and they are boxes 1.6, 1.13, 1.15, 1.16 and 1.19 that are highlighted. So basically I will go through each box. I'm going to select and discuss the boxes where I believe guidance is most required, because some of them are more straightforward and self-explanatory. So in part 1, I suppose part 1.1, we have the Consignor, which is straightforward. We have the attestation number in point 1.2, and this is a unique reference number to be applied by the business for each attestation. Point 1.2a, this is an IMSOC reference. IMSOC is the new name for Traces NT, so it was renamed a couple of weeks ago in line with the official controls regulation. And if these private attestations are submitted through Traces NT or through IMSOC, it will generate a unique alphanumeric code. So it only applies when attestations are submitted in IMSOC, and it will be automatically generated by that program. So point 1.6 then, I suppose, the operator responsible for the consignment. This might be a term that a few of you have not been aware of yet. And it is a term, again, from the regulations and from the OCR. So the operator responsible for the consignment is a person in the member state who is in charge of the consignment when it's presented to the border control post, and who makes the necessary declarations to the competent authorities as the importer or on behalf of the importer. And this operator may be the same as the consignee that's put in box 1.5. So again, most of these are region of origin. We've had a few queries on this. Regions only come into play where the movement of products are affected by regionalisation measures. So these are usually brought into force when there is an outbreak of notifiable animal disease. So currently, certainly between GB and Ireland, there is no regionalisation currently. The place of dispatch then, this is the name, address and ISO country code of the establishment from where the products come from. So for this, we would need to know the registration or the approval number. Now for composite products, if the processed product of animal origin is not further processed during the manufacture of the product, then the establishment must only be registered. But if there is further processing of that processed product of animal origin, then the establishment manufacturing the composite product must also be approved. So for the place of destination then, this is the place where the consignment is being delivered. The place of loading is the final place where the products are to be loaded in the means of transport for the journey to the EU. For date and time of departure, box 1.14, for products, including composite products, only the date is required, not the time. So again, means of transport, fairly self-explanatory. Select the means of transport for the movement of the composite product. If it's coming on a ferry, then the vessel is selected and the road vehicle identity, the registration number is provided in addition to the name and number of the ferry. If it is for point 1.16, then the entry border control post. So this is the BCP where the product is coming through. So for Ireland, there's 4 BCPs. We've Dublin Port, Rosslare Europort, Shannon Airport and Dublin Airport. For box 1.17, looking for accompanying documents, this is only commercial document references. So for example, if there's a bill of lading or the commercial number of the road vehicle should be input here. So box 1.19, the container number, seal number. The container number must be provided if the goods are transported in closed containers. A seal number should only be provided if it is an official seal, and what that means is a seal placed by an official veterinarian in the exporting country. That seal must also be provided on an official documentation. So for composite products on private attestations, it is likely seal numbers will not be provided. In terms of these boxes 24, 25 and 26, just to note, box I125 here, it's not applicable to composite products, so this box does not need to be completed. So I suppose the box that is most difficult to complete, I suppose, is box 127, and because of that I have done up an example in the next slide to show how we expect this to be completed. So in this box we're looking for 8 pieces of information about the consignment. We're looking for the CN code, we're looking for the type of packaging, and that means the type of exterior packaging, so that, you know, be it a cardboard box, etc. Then the number of packages, that relates to the total number of packages as provided in point 2, so the total number, say, of cardboard boxes. Point 4 then is the net weight, and this is the same as point 126, so the net weight is the weight of the product without the packaging. Points 5 and 6 here have been raising a certain number of queries, and the nature of the commodity, this is the type of processed product of animal origin. So for example, be it milk, egg or fish that's in the product. And point 6 then directly relates to point 5. It's the treatment that has been applied to that product of animal origin during the processing. So for example, UHT, sterilization, or a specific cooking temperature and time. Point 7 then is the date or date range the product was produced, and point 8 then is the batch number. If there is no batch number available, the best before date can be used here. This number is required as it will be used both in case of a product recall and will also be used to perform the identity check at the BCP for these products. So as I said, I've completed this example. So under description of the consignment would be the name of the product. So I've just picked a very generic type of composite product that would be travelling on a private attestation. Its correct CN code, the packaging it's in, its net weight. I've picked the nature, so in this product I've decided there's milk and egg, and I've input the relevant treatment type there. There's 2 batches in this product, so both batch numbers are provided, and as such there's also a date range of production which I've also provided. This final consumer is a box that will be selected on all of these, because these are obviously not for transit, these are for import. So this is a sort of set auto-filled piece on all the private attestations. So we then move on to point 2. So there are 11 attestations in total, and this form must be completed and signed by the importer or a representative of the importer. Just to note, the wording is slightly strange. Qualification and title of the importer, this is simply the position that the signatory has within the business. A stamp also is not required. This is an optional area to complete. So I'll go through each attestation to try and decipher and discuss what they mean and what they're looking for. So number 1 there, comply with the applicable requirements referred to in Article 1262 of Reg 27625. So this basically means that the composite product must be manufactured in a listed third country, and also that the product of animal origin must originate from an approved establishment. Point 2 there is literally attesting that it's a shelf-stable product. Point 3 is attesting that it contains no meat. So for points 4 and 5, these are the 2 attestations where specific information on the composite product must be provided. So legislation requires that the list of ingredients of processed product of animal origin and plant products are provided, and they should be provided in descending order and with a percentage. Point 5 then, they look for, the attestation requires that the country and approval number of the establishment of origin of the processed product of animal origin should be provided. So this is all about the traceability we discussed back in the early slides, as well as the approval number of the establishment of origin of the composite product if it's applicable. So as we previously discussed, if there is further processing of that product of animal origin during the manufacturing, then the manufacturing establishment must also be approved, and that approval number should also be provided in relation to this point 5 of the attestation. So point 6 is simply saying that the processed product of animal origin must originate in the third country which is approved for the import of each type or product of animal origin in the product. So, for example, the meat, or sorry, the fish or dairy must originate from a third country which is approved to import fish or dairy into the country. Point 7 then, the country where the product is manufactured must be listed for at least one of the products of animal origin. So they must be listed for either meat or dairy or eggs or fish. And this is in comparison to the non-shelf stable or shelf stable containing meat. And in those circumstances, the country where the product is manufactured must be listed for the actual product of animal origin in the product. Whereas because these are lower risk, the Commission requires that they must be listed for at least one of these 4. Point 8 then is just looking to see that the manufacturing establishment must be registered, and that's in line with Regulation 852. So point 9 then is just looking that a residue plan is in place, and point 10 and 11 then are discussing those animal health requirements relating to the dairy and egg products that we've previously discussed in slides. And we're still awaiting the final clarification from the Commission on the pasteurisation issue with the dairy products. So all composite products, excepting those listed in the annex to the delegated regulation, which I discussed previously, they will all require official controls at the border control post. So as such, 24 hours pre-notification of their arrival must be provided to the border control post through submission of Part 1 of a Common Health Entry Document, also referred to as a SHED, on Traces NT, which is now called IMSOC. The relevant documents must also be uploaded onto the DAFM import portal, and we strongly recommend submission of the health cert or the private attestation as soon as feasibly possible prior to the consignment's arrival, so that preliminary documentary checks can be performed, which will help to reduce delays at the port. So at the BCP then, documentary and identity check of the consignment will be performed, and in a certain percentage of cases, a physical check will also be required. So for composite products exempt from official controls, these consignments do not require pre-notification. The private attestation should accompany the consignment to the point of placing on the market, for example, the operator's warehouse, and there'll be risk-based controls at this point. So if exempted composite products are travelling with non-exempted composite products, they can't be on the same private attestation. They must be on separate private attestations, and they must be also clearly separated in the load to facilitate identity checks at the port. So in summary, we know the rules are changing. The percentage of product of animal origin is gone and has now been replaced by this risk-based approach. As we saw in 2019-625, there are 3 categories of composite product based on risk. All composite products need either a health cert or a private attestation. There is no derogation from documentary requirements for these products now. The list of products exempted from official controls at the BCP is provided in that new delegated regulation, and the private attestation must accompany each load of products imported into the EU. So for more information, visit our Brexit page on gov.ie at the address there and search for importing composite products, and there is information on these new updated rules. There's also some very good information on the EU website under EU import conditions for composite products, which has some excellent Q&A and some nice tables as well there. So thank you very much for listening. And as Tom said, we will try to answer as many questions as we can at the end of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Just on the subject of questions, we've already got quite a few questions in. I just want to say to you, some of the questions we're getting are very, very specific. They're sort of case specific to people's individual companies. I don't propose that we should go into those in the Q&A session here. We will engage with people directly. In some cases, we've got lists of 10, 12, 15 questions. So I don't think we can really deal with those here and now, but we will come back to people with specific answers to those. But we already have quite a number of questions that we will deal with in the Q&A session. One question that we have got a couple of times already that I can answer right now. Some people have asked whether or not the slides from the presentations are going to be distributed. Yes, they are. All of you will receive those. So that's the easiest way to do that. It'll give you a better idea of some of what people have been talking about today.